Hey beautiful people, it's me Daryl and I'm here with another video. Today's video will be on the 3 queer books that I read this month being Pride Month. These are 3 books that I absolutely adore, 3 books that I just wanted to highlight, showcase, put them out there, put them on your TBR possibly, or maybe have discussions with you if you've happened to read these 3 books. Yeah, I really love them and I just wanted to do reviews on them. I want to just touch briefly on 3 books that I'm currently reading that also have queer that have queer themes in them, and I just felt like I just wanted to sort of stick them in here a little bit just to give you 3 other options of books that you could possibly get on board with, but I'm not going to really talk about them much in great detail. So I'll just quickly mention that we have Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. I'm not sure if Catherine Lacey identifies as queer, I have no idea, but the 2 main characters in this book are queer. They're a lesbian couple. So that is something if you're looking for queer literature that's a little bit different, you might want to go for this one. We also have Punks, which is a poetry collection. Very raw queer themes going on in this one. If poetry is your thing, or you want to dip into poetry, or just you're looking for queer poetry, give this one a go. I love the cover. I've always loved this cover. It's awesome. And the last one that I want to mention is GUAPA. Now this one, Middle Eastern representation. It's a young gay man in an unnamed Arab country, and you follow his trials and tribulations and the things that he goes through and stuff like that. So that might be something that maybe you haven't heard about that you might want to put on your radar. So those are the 3 books I'm currently reading. But this video is really more about the 3 books that I have already read this month with queer themes. And I want to just review them and get them out there, possibly get them on your TBR. Hopefully you give them a go. So we're gonna, and also one disclaimer is that I also do these videos, as I mentioned before, in one take. They're off the cuff, so whatever happens, and let's get to it. So, first one I want to talk about is The Late Americans. I love this book. But Brandon Taylor, to me, is a hit and miss with a lot of readers. There are people who absolutely adore him and some people who just don't get the hype. And I can understand that. But for me, I'm really into him. This book, if you have not read Brandon Taylor, I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't think you should start with this one because I don't feel like this book is going to gain him any new fans. It's a very sprawling, kind of strange book in the sense of up till now, I have no idea what he really was trying to say or trying to convey, yet I still loved it. To me, the best thing that I can, so let me just kind of give you a little thing of what the book's about. Basically, it's about young artists, if you want to call them that. You have a lot of people who are either in the MFA program, or they're studying contemporary dance, or they're studying ballet. So you can kind of get an idea of it's artiste, sorta hipster-ish type feel. There are some blue-collar workers and stuff like that sprinkled around in there too. Some of the younger characters are from that crowd as well. But mostly you are following people who are, all about the arts. Now, this is a book that, many people have been describing as self-indulgent, which I totally get. It's what's the point? There's sort of a lot of bed hopping, a lot of these contemplating conversations that don't really necessarily seem all that universal. But I don't know, it works. For me, the way that I describe this, and I wrote a very lengthy review on Goodreads. In fact, all 3 of these books that I'm going to talk about, I wrote lengthy reviews on my Goodreads, so you can track me down on Goodreads and maybe, read them in case I don't manage to convey what I want to convey the best here. But yeah, so this book to me is sort of about those times in your life when you're young and you sort of realize that you're not going to be young anymore, and that life is not going to be catered to you anymore, and you have to make your decision, and you're now going on to adulthood, but true adulthood. This is what this book felt like. There are a lot of characters who sort of like, they have these big dreams. Some of them realize they have to give up on their dreams because it's just not going to pan out for them. Some of them decide to double down on their dreams and they're not going to let go of their dreams and they're going to make a name for themselves. And then there's others who are sort of like in flux, but they start to realize though that like life isn't really working out the way that they anticipated. There's a lot of things that are going on with these characters. To me, I mentioned this in my Goodreads, and I really do believe it, and I'm going to double down on this. I feel like Brandon Taylor, when he was writing this book, wanted to write a classic, or at least do something reminiscent of a classic, like classic literature. There are things like where when I'm reading it, I feel like it could be like a F. Scott Fitzgerald type feel. Then there's other times when I'm reading it and I'm like, I can sort of see this like as a Victorian novel kind of feel. Where there's like a huge cast of characters and whatever. And mostly I see like Russian literature in this. And I want to double down and say that Russian literature was probably his main like muse, if you want to call it that, or inspiration for what he was writing here, especially when there are a lot of characters that do have Russian names or Russian sounding names. So I really do believe that. When I say that it's written like classic literature, it's like, to me, he tweaked it so that it's appealing to a millennial or a Gen Z or something like that. So it's like classic literature, but modernized, but that's what it felt like. There were a lot of like characters pining over things, contemplating things, but like in these like superfluous kind of like way of talking and stuff like that. But to me, these are characters that you're reading that are all dreamers. They're all dreamers. They're trying to like go onto that world of like the arts and fulfilling their dreams and things like that. But it just doesn't really pan out for a lot of them. So you're going to get like a lot of heartbreaks, a lot of like power struggles between wealth and like the not so wealthy, between like the races, between like gender dynamics and like all sorts of different stuff, heavily queer. There is like, a lot of sex, a lot of bed hopping, a lot of betrayals, a lot of, like side chick behavior and stuff like that. But yeah, to me, I found this very entertaining. I found it was beautiful. The writing is a little bit, I don't want to say it's overdone. It's not overdone, but he was definitely like flexing here. Whether you, the reader who ends up reading this, feels it's to the detriment of the story, or you feel like he actually like it's just beautiful writing and it's not distracting, that will be up to you. But to me, I thought it was just a grand book. Like when I finished it, it just felt like I didn't want to leave this place, even though these characters are like not so friendly, or I don't want to say they're not relatable. They are relatable, but it's a friendship group that you might kind of consider toxic. But I absolutely loved it. Like, to me, it gave me the same feel like when I read classic literature, and I feel like that's what he was going for. I could be absolutely wrong about that, but to me, that's what it felt like. So yeah, definitely give this one a go. I don't know if anything that I said made you feel like you want to pick it up, but I say give it a go anyway. Just give it a try. The second book I'm going to talk about is God's Children Are Little Broken Things. Now, this is a short story collection, and oh my God, like this was incredible. I gave this 5 stars, despite the fact that the first 3 stories when I was reading this. Okay, so we'll talk about, this is a short story collection that is about, most of the characters are young, in a Nigerian setting, like it's set in Nigeria, where Nigeria, or at least Nigeria depicted in this book, is very homophobic, outwardly homophobic. So it's not a safe place for these characters. A lot of these characters are hiding from society, finding out like who they are. And then there are some who are comfortable with who they are and don't mind showcasing it out there in the world, but are always worried because it's not acceptable to be homosexual. So yeah, that's the vibe of this book. Now, the first 3 stories in this book are beautiful. They're beautiful, elegantly written. That's one thing that this author has going for him, is great writing, great prose. But those first three stories, as much as I like them, I found they followed similar beats. It was sort of like, in my mind, I was like, oh, is this how all of these stories are gonna go? And I wasn't as emotionally invested until the title story started. And I bawled my eyes out. I am an emotional reader. I'm an emotional person in general, so it's not a shock. But for me, like, I bawled my eyes out. It was just so sad and beautiful and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and just like it was everything. And after that story, this short story collection just took off. Every single story after that was a banger. My favorite story is called What the Lovers Sing. Oh my God, I'm so bad at these titles and whatever, but it's something about singers. In that particular story, we follow a young man who's in love with this other young man. They're together, everything is good and whatever, but his boyfriend is an aspiring singer, and he kind of like hits it big, and it sort of changes the dynamic of their relationship, because now that he's a big thing, their homosexuality is gonna be like under scrutiny. So there was just so much in that story, and to me that story really reminded me of a modern day James Baldwin, like to the T. It was like I was reading it and I was like, this is what James Baldwin would be writing if he was still alive and living in like 2023. So yeah, I think this collection is great. Like, the prose is unbelievable, and the prose just heightens the emotion so much. Like, you really feel like a lot of anguish. There's a lot of stories in here where I feel like you just have a lump in your throat the whole time, because it's just so heartbreaking, and so like you get really absorbed in just how much these characters want to be who they want to be, but society really is like pushing them and trying to quash that, like trying to get rid of who they are. And it's very, very powerful. It's very powerful. The stories are very accessible, I would say, as well too. And I feel like they're very relatable, even for people who aren't queer. You will inhabit these characters. That's what I loved about this book, is that it has that like X factor. So to me, this is definitely one of my favorite books of the year. Like, it came as such a surprise. It was like such a, like, it really hit me in the gut. It hit me in the gut, the heart, the brain, the everything. It was just like, this is what I want. And for me, I'm a short story collection fanatic. Like, I might arguably love short stories more than novels. And to me, this author pulled it off, and it's like, this is a short story collection that you need. And if you're looking for like really great, heart-wrenching queer literature in your life, please give this one a go. Like, you have to, like, you just have to. And lastly, I'm going to talk about The Family Way. Now, okay. So backstory really quickly is that, I know the author. Like, I haven't seen this author in forever. Okay, so know is a loose word, but I know his parents. I know the author's parents pretty well. And when my dad died in April, his parents showed up at the funeral, well, the visitation and stuff, and such sweet people and whatever. So to me, the first time I bought this book when it first came out. I think it came out in 2021, and the reason I picked it up is because I recognized the author's name, and I was like, oh yeah, I definitely got to support him and whatever, in my own backyard as well, Montreal. So it's like, yes, I have to. But when I started reading it at the time, I wasn't into it. I think my mind was just elsewhere. So I didn't, like, I was like, okay, it's not bad, but it's just not for me at the moment. But I picked it up now. And oh my gosh, it's so good. Now the thing is, this to me is a book that I shouldn't like. And the reason why I say, not that I shouldn't say that I shouldn't like, that may be a strong thing to say. But if you know me, or like I know myself, I love darker reads. I just tend to gravitate towards that. I like dark, messy, bleak, kind of dark. That's just my jam. That's just what I'm into. So for me, when I read a book that, and by no means am I saying like, oh, this is lighthearted or whatever. It's not that, but it's just that. And this is gonna sound really weird, okay? But I do have a problem with this. A lot of people have said this to me. I don't like reading about good people. Or like, okay, that sounds weird because I do like to read about good people. But I like every character in this book is good. They're imperfect and whatever. They have their dramas. They do certain things, but like to the core, they're all good people. And to me, I tend to like not be like, I'm like, no, I want like someone who is, I don't know, like an asshole or a jerk or, down and dirty or something, like just to shake things up. And there are things that are shaken up in this book, but they're ultimately, like I said, all good people. But it's such a beautiful book. To me, the prose is very straightforward and it's very dialogue heavy. So I find that it would be very easy to sort of dismiss this book or think like there isn't a lot to offer, but there is so much that there is to unpack in this book. Now, to explain to you is that we follow Paul, who turned 40. He sort of realizes that his young gay life, like young gay things that he is like over. Not that it's over, but he's like 40, so it's a different time of gay life. And he is asked by his two lesbian friends to donate his sperm because they want to have a baby, and he accepts this. He kind of knew in a way that they would ask him eventually. So we go on to this path of like, he's going to be a father, but they don't want him to be a father. Like, the two friends are going to be this child's parents. He is not going to be a father. He's just basically going to be a donor, but he will be in this child's life. So we dissect sort of things with that. He's grieving for his mom that died. He has a complicated relationship with his dad, and he worries about his sister who has left her husband, and she is involved with some new guy, right? And then we also have like his chosen family. So we have, he has a young partner, a partner who's significantly younger than him. I think his partner is 28 when we first read this book, when we're first reading. And he has like a best friend and all that. All of these men are gay, and they are his chosen family. You go through like everyday life with this character. There are like mundane things, like things he just does that necessarily wouldn't be like riveting on the page, but it just works here. You really feel like you're in this character's mind for all of it. Like, not just the heightened things that authors normally would put in a book where it's just like, we're just gonna highlight the drama or whatever, or the contemplation. It's like you're there for everything, every step of the way. All the nice memories, all the heartbreak, all the worrying, all the like, how are we gonna pay our bills and all that, like it's all in here. To me, it is gorgeous. It's one of these things where I did not want to leave this friendship group. Like, I did not want to leave this friend group. They're just so nice. And there's like a sort of wholesome, heartwarming feel to the story as well, even though it's dissecting so many different topics. So we have like the topic of fatherhood, we have the topic of family, like who is a family, who makes up a family. We have like biological family versus chosen family, but we also dissect like relationships, and there's a lot in here. So we have like monogamous relationships versus open relationships. Is it okay to eventually open up in the relationship and have more than like have another partner or a one night stand like involved in your relationship? We have stuff about like father figures in sexual situations. We have like, how does an older man deal with a younger partner? We have like topics of marriage, interesting things about marriage in the sense of like marriage at the beginning was tended to be like a heteronormative sort of union, and like some gay people or some queer people feel like they don't want to do the heteronormative thing by getting married, but then you have others, it's like, well, I want what my parents had. And you know, you have all different aspects of that. You have also stuff like where it talks about like the early days of like when HIV and AIDS and entered the equation and what that did to queer existence and sex and stuff and how it just changed the dynamics of all that. There's so much going on in the book, but it runs so smoothly and is done in such an like ordinary, natural, real life kind of way that it's very easy to just think that you're just reading this nice story, but there's just so much that happens in it. And there are 3 moments in this book that broke me, like really, really emotional moments, like moving moments. That's the word I was looking for, moving moments. It's just, it's really, really beautiful. Like every character, like I would want like a spin-off in a way of like each character, because they all were compelling in their own ways. The main character, to me, sometimes the main character annoyed me in ways, but like that was what was true to it, is that the character is like so nice, but sometimes he does certain things where you're kind of like, oh, you know what, you don't have like any foresight, or you're so like sort of absorbed in how you're feeling in a moment. But that was so true to life. Yeah, I honestly think that this is really great. I feel that there's a lot of people who could easily pick this up and you'll just fly through it. It's very easy to read, but there's just so much in it that is just wonderful. It's wonderful. Like I had such a warm place in my heart, and not that I'm like a cynic or, you know, like, or like a bad seed type thing. But like, again, like I said, normally books like this wouldn't necessarily work for me because I want that like darkness in it. And it didn't really produce that, even though there are moments, like I said, where, you know, shit hits the fan basically. It just always had this smooth kind of light feel to it. And that is what makes this book gorgeous. So anyway, that is all that I have to talk about. Hopefully you found some books that you could possibly put on your TBR, or something has stimulated you a little bit. Like I hope that my job here is done. And I don't know why I make videos that so long. I only had 3 books to talk about and I still managed to make this video 22 minutes. But anyway, I hope that you stuck around. Love you always. Smooches. I really do enjoy making these videos, so thank you so much for watching them. And just let me know if there are any books that you're going to add to your TBR, or what books you're reading for Pride Month. And remember that Pride should not just be 1 month. You know, like you should be you should be doing this like all year round. I don't have to tell you. Lecture over. Love you. Bye.